What is happening there, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic Wednesday evening. At least I think that's what day it is. My work schedule's got me so freaking twisted up right now that I'm doing good just to remember, I don't know, days of the week. Anyway, so, I wanted to talk about, getting a lot of questions about the car, when I say the car now, I'm so used to talking about Shalander, but we're talking about Revlon now. Michael Corleone, what up? B. Mason, what's up, Michael Corleone? A lot of folks are asking, trying to get an idea for what the setup is for my car, and that would be Project Revlon. And really, there's not much to it. I've been fortunate enough to have some pretty decent DAs lately, so the car's just kind of doing what it does. I'm really not doing anything spectacularly different than what you guys would be doing with it. So, basically it's just a set of race stars and that's it. And I think really what I wanted to do the most with the car is just show that, you don't have to throw a ton of money at one of these cars to have not only a good time with it, but two, have something you can take to the drag strip and have fun with. But mid-10s isn't half bad considering the weather, but, honestly, I wouldn't call the car a mid-10 second car. I think that's giving it a little bit too much credit. And I think that, to be honest with you, there's a little bit too much wrapped into, what records there are that are out there. And a lot of what I'm talking about tonight does stem from the, the summoning of the demons or the demon call out or whatever. And the fact that, all those cars went 9s, well, that's fantastic. But the downside to it is that none of the cars went in the 960s. But for some decent reasons, you had a headwind and, start picking your excuses. But the one thing that has always resounded with those cars is that they don't run the number in a 0 DA condition. It takes negative density altitude conditions to get those cars to run the times that they're currently running. Before I get too deep, let me say hey to everybody that's checking in. SCAT 426 saying, what up, you Mason? What up, SCAT? Cleaver Enterprise, B, what's good? What's up, Cleaver? Let's see. Triple Threat. Triple in the house. I like it. SCAT Pack 392 Love. What up, B? What up, SCAT Pack? Cran Man, howdy, B. Cheers. I appreciate it. Cheers. Little iced tea kicking over here for us. And let's see, multiple Mopars. DA plus traction plus decent driver equals decent time. Yep. Jay Poma saying, yo with a fist. Psh, I like it. So a lot of what, but getting back to the topic, a lot of what the criticism was of the Demon is that you had to run the car in an obscene density altitude to get an advertised time out of that car, coupled with the fact you would have to have track prep that is, let's face it, hard to come by at most of your local tracks. But the car could actually pull it off. And with race car going a 978 against a headwind in bone stock form, kind of proves that point. But the idea is with the Hellcat or with the Redeye, these are the cars you're going to be seeing at the drag strip the most often. These are the cars that are most attainable. And to be honest with you, these are the cars that you're going to see being modded the most. And I thought that it would be fun just to take a bone stock base model Hellcat Challenger and see what we could get out of it just by putting a set of wheels and tires on the thing and take it to the drag strip and see what she would run in some decent air. And so far, it's proven to be pretty freaking quick. With the only modifications to the car being the drive shaft. And again, that's a durability modification more than anything else. And the differential brace, which, I don't know if that's doing us any good, but it's on the car nevertheless. And with no other modifications, the car is running real consistent 1050s right now, which, to be frank, if you put it up against any other Hellcat, they're all about the same. And I'm still waiting to get the car on a dyno, but I can tell you from past experience, it's not going to be any different than any other of the Hellcats that are out there. It's fucking fly. Anyway, so, making about 595 to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno. But the thing about it is the car is real consistent, and that's something that I'm having a ball with as well. But again, getting back to, you know, why I wanted to look more into seeing how deep I could take a stock car. It's one of those situations where, you know, I got to thinking about it. These things are pretty fast already. And I think that for a lot of us that have been doing this for a long time, that are still, quite frankly, amazed that you could have the NA 392 cars running in the 11s with very little done, having Hellcats that'll run deep into the 10s with nothing but tires put on them. That's amazing to most of us that grew up and remember a time where, you know, a 12-second car was really pretty about as quick as you were going to find on the street, save for maybe a couple of 11-second cars, but they were always pretty rowdy. Now we've got bone stock cars that, you know, are, you know, 11-second cars from the factory, 10-second cars from the factory. That's pretty cool stuff when you consider it. So, you know, the way I look at it is throwing some durability mods on the car, taking it to the drag strip and seeing just how deep in the 10s we can get this thing this winter is kind of neat, you know. And if I could pull off a 1041 or a 1039 with it, that would be saying something. But I think what, God dang it, hang on, timeout, earthquake, get this thing fixed. God dang it, hang on, technical difficulties, one moment please. God, dog. All right, we're fixed. But anyway, seeing how deep we can get this thing is going to be a lot of fun, and it's a bit more of a challenge when you're just not throwing money at something. So, but again, I wouldn't call it a 1050 car or a 1040 car. I mean, it's running 1040. I wouldn't really call it that. I would say that the car is good for, you know, high 10s, mid to high 10s pretty regularly. So let's see. Chevy Mopar, got the arms up. Woo, that'd be Mason. I like it. Fast Man, got some negative 5,000 foot DA in Chicagoland. Negative 15-degree temps. No kidding, right? If only we had tires that would work in those conditions. That's funny, too, because I'll be in Chicago next week. James Studd, always make a woman sit, then spin naked. Yeah, that's some good advice, James. Thank you for that. Chevy Mopar, was it me or did you catch that wide-body red-eye sleeping on the tree? It's 6 degrees here in St. Louis, bro. Jay Poma, I feel you, man. Yeah, no, that's multiple Mopars. And yeah, didn't quite realize we were on a pro tree, and I really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to it either. I just saw all the yellows go off, so I floored it. So, but yeah, no, that, and even though you can say I crossed the finish line first, that's hardly to say that my car is quicker than his. That red eye is no joke, and it's consistently, even at full weight, his car is consistently going to be a little bit quicker than mine, and you would expect that with the extra power that those cars are making. Let's see. Something that I can't pronounce, asking if I'm ready for Valentine's Day. Nobody's ever ready for Valentine's Day. Okay, and saying, hey, Mopar Messiah, occasionally when I start my SCAT pack, there's a distinct puff of white or blue smoke that comes out of the tailpipe, and it looks like oil smoke, and it is. It only lasts a couple of seconds, and that's all it will last. So what that is that you, even with a catch can, first and foremost, don't worry about it. It's completely normal. What happens is a little bit of oil will pool on the intake valves. Even with a catch can, you still get the vapor. Once it gets past the nucleation site in the catch can itself, you still have, it is still going to hit the walls of your intake manifold. It'll come out of suspension on the walls and basically just kind of wets the walls of the runners. If the car sits, most of the time you'll have that happen. At least with mine, it would be if the car ran for just a small amount of time and I shut it off and then started it again. That's when you notice it the most. But don't worry about it a bit. It's just a little bit of oil pooling on the intake valve. And that happens with cars with and without catch cans, by the way. So don't sweat it. You're good. SCAT 426 with the laughs. Yeah, that was where our camera hit the Hit the deck. Down goes Frazier. Yep. Let's see. Clever Enterprise saying, what's the deal with the dyno readings? My Charger SCAT dyno was 442. Is that accurate, or a Mustang dyno a more realistic number? They're all realistic. I mean, I don't like to say one is more accurate than another. From a comparison standpoint, a Mustang dyno on a stock car, they all make, the 8-speed automatic cars, all of them make somewhere between 400 and 410 to the rear wheels. The earlier models will typically make about 390-ish, you know, the NAG 1 or any of the ones with the power steering anyway. And by the way, it has nothing to do with the power steering. It has more to do with the tune on the stock cars. But most of the cars that I've seen, the 392 cars on a Dyno Jet, have made, I think it was 425 to 430 to the rear wheels on almost every Dyno Jet I've ever seen any 392 car run on. So if that gives you any kind of a barometer that you can, you know, put your car up against. Let's see. Mopars, I wasn't done making my sandwich when the green light came on. Yeah, that's all right though. I didn't leave hard enough on you to put you in my rearview mirror, brother. That's for sure. That car was right on my quarter panel all the way down the track. It was pretty much reeling me in. Let's see. Show Me Mopar is asking, what's a wide-body Redeye with a driver and a tire good for in the quarter? Well, I can tell you right now that multiple Mopars is clicked off a 1037 or a 1039, and up in Dallas, I mean, we're both pretty much neck and neck in the 50s, with him being about, I would say, if you were to line both, you know, his carb, my carb, he's probably about half a tenth quicker than me, and probably a couple of mile an hour on the big end, at somewhere in that range. But you know, 1050s to 1030s, depending on conditions. And it'll, I mean, and it'll look damn good doing it too. Sophonic saying, so another Mustang guy claims his 5.0 engine is more efficient, hence better than the LS motors. I asked him efficient how. He says it's just more efficient. They act so high and mighty. Man, you know, I got to tell you guys something. As big of a fan as I am of the Mustangs, and you guys know I do talk Mustangs up a lot, but you know, there's a certain level of complexity that the Mustang gets to that the Mopars and the LS crowd just doesn't have to contend with. And you know, say what you will about the power output of the 6.2 being a little bit shy. Still think the 6.2 is detuned. There's a lot more left in that engine. And with the 392, it's kind of hard to get more out of it without losing power down low, because you got a heavy car. That compromise is tough to stomach, so to speak. But you know, the neat thing about the 5.0 is that you can do a lot with it. It's a 4-valve V8. I mean, you would expect that you could in this day and age, right? But it's not without its flaws. And one of its biggest flaws is the fact that it's going to be compared to the 392 cars, which are, again, they're far and away different with how they make power when you compare the two. But my suggestion to any quote-unquote high and mighty Mustang owner that wants to bench race is, you know, take the argument away from, you know, doing the roll racing or whatever. Do two things. One, take both cars to the drag strip and watch what happens to you, especially in the 8th mile when compared to a 392 car. But challenge that Mustang driver to drive one of the Mopars. You would be shocked how quickly their story will change when they get a taste of what that torque feels like down low with that 392. Let's see. Natalie's saying 910 shocks with Demon Springs for my SCAT pack. Been studying it for help with, doing it for help with it. Are you serious? Hold up. Godzilla walking around out there. Oh. Man, this keeps up. Good Lord. Production quality at its finest. Let me get back over here. Let's see. Here we go. Well, I don't know what. Okay, 9010 shocks. Good idea to go. In fact, I know one guy that's already moved to the Demon Springs that actually helped his. He's got a real high powered Hellcat Charger. Let's see. Oh yeah, Symphonic saying drop some knowledge on me. Look, all I can say to that is this: put them behind the wheel of any car with a 392, and they're like I was saying, their attitude's going to change real quickly. Let's see. Racer X saying, what did you think about the footage? Your car was looking strong. I loved it. In fact, go check out Racer X's page if you want to see some of the footage from that track rental up in Dallas. We had a lot of fun and got to hang out with some friends. It's one of those situations where the DA just was not really low enough to give us that 8th mile that we need to really cover a number on the back half of the track. But it doesn't matter really at this point. I mean, I think we've all pretty much proven the point that the stock Hellcat doesn't take much to run mid-10s with them, and they're a lot of fun because they're stock, and they do that kind of stuff. And obviously everybody was having a good time out there that day. So let's see. So yeah, check out Racer X's page though. Check out some of that footage. It's really good stuff. Let's see. Clever saying, I asked and the operator said it's because the 18 made 10 more than previous years, 485 from 475 true. Yeah, that's what they're rated at. They went from 475 to 485 in 2015, and that rating's been the same since 2015. A lot of that has to do with the tune, I think, more than anything else. Ryan Zaplak, what's up, my brother? Say, what's up, bro? Stevens, just wanted to throw some love your way, brother. Right back at you. I got to give you a shout when you're on dominating the Mopar bandwidth. Keep crushing, brother. We'll call soon. For sure, brother. You better call me. Hope everything's going well with you, friend. Multiple Mopars. This is Jay Poma saying, Multiple Mopars got some good stuff brewing. Yeah, he does. Get over there and subscribe to that channel. It's a good, he's getting his stuff up and running. So get over there and support Multiple Mopars. Toby Rama says, hey, Brian. Hey, Toby Rama. Sam is asking, what are my thoughts on the Daytona Charger? I like them. They're nice cars. And as a matter of fact, it's actually a really nice car and wouldn't be too shitty to have one as a daily driver. A little 5.7 Daytona would be sweet. Let's see. Jay Pump is hollering out to Racer X. Hokan is saying, is it realistic to have a dual overhead cam engine with 6+ liters of displacement, or would size be too big to fit in a car? No. You could absolutely do that. The only downside to that would be the actual packaging. I mean, you can engineer anything to fit. You'll see a lot of the larger displacement engines, dual overhead cam stuff in mid-engine cars because you got more room back there. But the reality is that for packaging's sake, it can be kind of tough. Now, it's definitely not undoable, though. But I think that manufacturers that are moving to that type of architecture are putting so much more emphasis on the total control of the cam events that you're going to have a difficult time justifying a much larger displacement engine, mainly for two reasons. One, it's unnecessary. The extra displacement can be made up for in efficiency with varying the camshaft. And two, it costs a lot to develop a new engine, but it would be fantastic if we could see something like that. Be on the lookout for something like that in the C8 Corvette, by the way. Showing Mopar, about to get my ported intake back from peak speed. Absolutely. I said somebody in Texas ain't porting until March. That's right. Yeah, got to take a little bit of a break to get some of my normal daily stuff done, but I will be back up and running in March. But Peak does do a good job. Do I have to prime the injectors or just fire it up? Just fire up. You'll be good. Make sure. No, you're going to be good. Don't worry. I mean, what I was going to say is it's a good opportunity to get your injectors flow checked and balanced, but I think you will be okay with yours. Jean-Paul says, good evening, B. Mason. I did ask you this question on the other night. I missed your answer. You asked me what question? Refresh my memory, brother. Symphonics, Hoken. Hey, there he is. Yeah, you saying you saw somebody take an LS7, put DOHC cams on it, and turboed it out to 1,400 horsepower. On the front end, that sounds impressive, but there are so many people making 1,000, 1,200 plus horsepower at this stage of the game that with 2-valve stuff that it doesn't. And that's the other thing with computers being as good as they are, with turbos and superchargers being as efficient as they are, you almost don't need to have dual overhead cam. I mean, it's great for NA stuff, but so here's the problem. If you make the engine larger to try to pick up on torque down low, which is what the 5-liter lacks compared to the 392, you're still going to potentially run into an issue with metallurgy, maybe from the factory not being able to sustain over 7,000 RPM in an engine with pistons that would be larger, or a stroke that is longer, and dealing with faster piston speeds. There's a balance that these manufacturers have to hit, and that may be one of the issues. Jay Puma. This is actually really funny. LS Swap, aka every show on Motor Trend. So if you guys are a big fan of MTOD, which is Motor Trend on Demand, you'll see basically every car that anybody does anything to, with the watering down of every one of those shows. It's LS3, LS1, LS6, LS9. Everything has some type of an LS engine in it. What I would love to see, and one of the I'm a big fan of Engine Masters, mainly because they use traditional old, for the most part. There's obviously going to be some LS stuff on there, but you'll see an old 350. You'll see an old 318 or 360. You'll see a 302 on there every once in a while. Any of the older stuff. The older stuff keeps getting overshadowed by the newer LS platform, and it's a real shame. There's so many reasons to not go with an LS platform, and one of them is just the fact that it's to me it's a little bit cooler to have the older school mill in the car. I mean, yeah, I get it. I mean, you can get big block horsepower numbers out of an LS by simply walking past it and, winking at it. But I don't know. This is just kind of the old guy in me coming out. My inner old guy is going, you're forgetting where you came from. Anyway, sorry, back to it. Brian King laughing at my, gravity's kicking my ass tonight. Jean-Paul is asking, what pressure do you run in your front runners? I run 85 PSI in my front runners. They are meant to run that kind of pressure. They are not bias ply. They are a true radial tire. Not very lightweight, but they are stable. Want to know, like SB340 say, nice runs the other day, buddy. Thank you very much. Can you hit the tree? You can hit the tree like a before. Actually, I wasn't on the tree all that hard. There's a difference between a race and a paper chase, when you're just going for the ticket. And but yeah, with me and multiple Mopars lined up, it was kind of funny because, I'm sitting there and he's getting staged. Actually, we had both pre-staged, and I rolled into the beams. What in the hell? This thing's picking up a weird light. Hang on. I roll into the beams and it just goes all yellow. So anyway, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. Let's see. Jake Thomason, one more time. It's a TKO. No kidding, man. 3 knockdown rule applies in this one. Sean Egan, Cleveland Enterprise. My 392 made 434 stock, then 458 with long tubes and a tune, 464 now with a Fastman throttle body. That's actually a good pickup. Man, I really like my Fastman throttle bodies. And I don't have one for the Hellcat yet. I need to, really should rectify that here at some point. SCAT 426. My buddy has a 2018 5.0. Well, he drove my SCAT pack and was surprised how much more powerful the car felt compared to his 5.0. See, that's what I'm talking about. So what number chasing forces you to forget is that just the driving experience in general of one of the 392 cars is going to far and away overshadow the smaller engine cars. Man, it's literally in this case a difference between a small block and a big block. So, you know, everybody loves their small block until they drive a big block, basically, is how that works out. Sam's asking, what are my thoughts on the new 5.7 ETorque? I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, but there was a company, I cannot remember the name of it, but they were marketing an electric motor, kind of like the same thing that the ETorque has. They were doing it to LS engines, and basically it was I don't know how many horsepower, say 30 horsepower electric motor, making probably, I don't know, I'm guessing on the horsepower, you know, say 30 horsepower and 80 pound-feet of torque, more torque. And it was available just at the flick of a wrist, and it looked like kind of like a supercharger, except instead of being a parasitic drag, it was actually turning the crankshaft. So same type of an idea. You know, stuff like that is cool. You know, I think that there is definitely a place for that, and as the technology catches up to some of the ideas that some folks have, I think, you know, anything that, you know, assists in durability, you know, towing safety, towing power, I think it's a good thing. Let's see how well it lasts. Let's see. Mopar saying, look great, Racer X. That's the let's see. Oh, one and only. Let's see. We got Sean Egan saying, B, all my Ford buddies love my SCAT pack. You're right. You know, I mean, and I know, guys, like, I know this. I've driven the GT 350 and I've driven the Mustang GT with a Coyote. And when I went in, I've driven the truck. You know, I drove the EcoBoost 3.5, and even like I say, I know that on paper that truck is faster than my work truck. But the problem is it's just, if the driving experience doesn't agree with what the numbers were showing, and if it were any different, I would certainly have you know, I'd admit to it. It just wasn't the case. Let's see. One and only SB is saying he's on multiple Mopars now. Very good. Sending out some love, looks like, to Racer X. I like it. Sharad's asking, if you put a supercharger on a 6.4 with long tube headers and high flow cats, would the boost level drop by, say, 1.5 psi? No, you wouldn't lose that much. You might lose one psi, but you're not really choking it off that much with high flow cats. But that being said, if you're running long tubes, make sure you're running metal substrate catalytic converters. Do not run ceramics on long tubes. But you might lose a pound of boost. And I'm guessing you're talking about like a ProCharger type setup on that. Positive displacement supercharger, with that setup, you really wouldn't lose a lot. Well, positive displacement, you might lose, yeah, about a pound as well. Sophonics, thoughts on C6 versus C7 looks. What one do you think will age better and look better? You know, Corvettes, they age at about the same rate, it seems like. They'll hit about a 20-year lull and then start to, you know, come back up. In terms of looks, I like the C6 better. I don't like the C7 Stingray. mainly because of the offset for the rear wheels. I think it looks very odd to have the offset the way that it is on those cars. So for that, I like the C6 better. I like the C7 Grand Sport and the C7 Z06 in terms of looks a little bit more than the C6, but you know, they both look good to me. They're both vets. I would just say that my least favorite is that C7 Stingray. Let's see. Racer X saying, awesome, B. Tell everyone about the elephant you just ordered for Revlon. LOL. Yeah, no elephant is ordered for Revlon at all, as a matter of fact. You know, I'm having too much fun with it the way it sits. And realistically, to get that engine, that crate engine to work the right way in one of these cars, you would really want to run that thing on race gas or E85, in my opinion. I would not want to run that engine on 93, mainly because you're not going to see enough of a power gain just based on what 93 octane can manage with a vehicle of this weight. I just don't see there being enough of a benefit there. Now, if you want to really turn the wick up on it and throw a fuel system at it, throw basically the kitchen sink at it in the process of putting that elephant engine in there, then, you know, okay, so you got 1,000 horsepower, but, you know, Racer X, you've already got 1,000 horsepower engine in your car. So really, what are you getting? A little bit more torque down low? Don't really know if the cars need a lot more torque when you're already making a bunch of torque as it sits. That's how you break stuff. So at any rate, let's see. But I mean, you start finding weak links really quickly with that. Sharad's asking, would you put a smaller pulley back to gain that boost level back? That's actually what guys will typically do. If you've got mods that are increasing the efficiency of the exhaust side of your engine and you lose a little bit of boost, there's a couple of different schools of thought. One is it'll typically make the same horsepower with the lower boost, which is good. You can run a slightly smaller pulley on the supercharger to get some of your boost back, and you'll have basically the same boost level, but you'll be making slightly more power. So you can actually get away with either or on that. Racer X is checking out. Just want to say hello. Hello right back at you, my brother. Can't wait to get back on the track soon. Hopefully you get your car back soon. Sean is asking, what are your rear drag pack tires? Would they fit on a 17x9 wheel? Yes, they do. They are 305 45 17. And the race stars are 17x9s, by the way. Let's see. Oh no, multiple Mopar saying, we got the goodies coming for thee, and then it stops. Oh no, where'd the rest of it go? Oh, Redeye, Demon Suspension, Headers, Borla Attack, Pulleys, Axles, Drive Shaft, PCM goodies. I like it. You want to know he's checking in with multiple Mopars. I like it. Toby Rom's asking, what interest would a company have in underwriting an engine's power and torque figures? You often say a car being advertised at 300 horsepower, 350, but on a dyno, those engine figures are higher. Okay, so a couple of things. Modern manufacturers don't mess with underrating or overrating engines. What you're seeing there is you're seeing a standard correction versus an SAE correction. And even SAE corrections can differ. It depends on which SAE they're going with. If it's the older SAE or if it's the latest J1304 or whatever number it is. But basically, there's always going to be at about a 4% difference between standard correction and SAE correction. And that it's based on the temperature and the humidity that that those figures are correcting to. So that's why it's not uncommon if you see a standard correction just multiply it by 0.96, and that'll basically get you what the SAE corrected number will be. But modern engines, you don't really see that too much. There's no real reason to. Back in the day, they used to do it for insurance purposes, but insurance companies really don't care about that stuff. Not like that anyway. Let's see. Cleaver is saying, at Sean Egan and B. Mason, got a leg maker true CAI and buying that Fastman throttle body and a Hemi Fever tune. I've been told the long tubes aren't a necessity. Any thoughts? I agree with that. I would not bother with putting long tube headers on a stock 392. Unless you're looking for a specific sound, the long tubes will help it pick up a little bit of partial throttle torque and a little bit of torque down low, but that's it. You're not going to see any gain in power on the big end. In fact, from what I've seen, you'll actually potentially see it tear off on the end of the dyno chart. Instead of carrying power the way the shorties will, you'll see them start to, you'll see the car nose over a little bit more aggressively. The reality is that the cam profile in the stock 392 does not lend itself very well to long tube headers in terms of scavenging. You've got a very wide lobe separation angle and not very much duration. So couple those two things together and, it just doesn't allow those long tube headers to work. So you're basically forcing exhaust through a really long tube unnecessarily, which can actually hurt power in the upper RPM range. And this fly is about to get dealt with if it comes near me again. So anyway, let's see. Patrick saying, glad to be back in class. Glad to have you, Patrick. Let's see. One and only SP340. Actually, I was talking in general, but yeah. Guess I could have mentioned that. All righty. Let's see. I missed something in here. It must have been when the phone decided to go skydiving. Uncle Stinkford's asking, hey, bud, skip my question. I'm asking what ultra high performance summer tire would I recommend? I like the Pirellis. But if you're talking about a true high performance summer tire, let's see. Yeah, Pirelli summer tires would be probably on the top of my list. They would offer some of the best traction with some of the better longevity of any of the tires that I'm aware of. Let's see. Jay Pum is saying, I caught that, Uncle, talking about Uncle Stinkford. I'm pretty sure I may have missed a couple of guys, on that. So I do apologize. If I did, throw your question back up. TU Zay, and to your point a few minutes ago, what's up, TU in the house? It's way cooler to have a built original big block or built original small block in most of the old schools. I'm sick of LS swaps and everything. Man, I got to tell you, I'm so kind of over the LS swap thing. And, I get it. They're great. They do a lot of really cool things, but for some reason, to me, you just lose. There's a certain amount of original charm that all of these cars have. Like, let's say you're building an old Coronet and you want to throw a modern Hemi in the thing. Yeah, okay, but there's nothing wrong with the 318 or the 360 or building a 340 for it. Same goes for any like older Nova or a Chevelle or something like that. Dude, man, I mean, LSs are great until you drive something with a true big block. Get out there and drive something with, a 427 or a 454, and then tell me what that LS6 or, whatever LS1 really drives like by comparison. One and only is asking, B, did you see Kevin Van Voris beat up his brother's Mustang and his Demon in eco mode? No, I didn't. No, I didn't, but I need to check that out. That sounds pretty funny. Let's see. Sam is saying, man, as a diesel guy, gas motors just confuse me. I mean, changing to bigger injectors on a diesel increases performance as well as miles per gallon. Do the same things. Hang on. I lost it here. Wait. The same thing apply to gas motor, and it's the opposite effect. Absolutely, it's the opposite effect, unless you tune for it. The trick with gas engines and going with bigger injectors is making sure you've tuned for the injectors and choose the right injectors for your application. Typically, the larger injector is going to have a better spray pattern than the smaller ones at any given pressure. Well, at whatever pressure is needed for a specific power output. Let's see. Go 74. It's hard to rebuild an 85 C20 transmission. It hasn't run in 5 years. What other stuff should I do to it? He's asking, is it hard to rebuild a 1985 C20? No, it's not. It's just as easy as there's probably 20. I'm sure it's a turbo 400. Hasn't run in 5 years. What other stuff should I do to it? Everything. I mean, something from 85, you can literally do whatever you want on a shoestring budget, and it'll probably last you the rest of your life. Let's see. But yeah, if it's a turbo 400 or even a 700 R4, if it's a small block, that is not a big deal to work on. You just need a big workbench. One and only SB is saying, I was stunned. He pulled like 3 or 4 cars in just a few seconds. Yep. TU is saying, at J, right on. I like it. Show me Mopar is saying, finally saw a wide body in person at Auto Show. Plum Crazy Redeye with black hood. Really, pictures and videos do it no justice, which I 100% agree with. It's amazing how nice it flows. Just looks almost exotic. I really am a big fan of the wide bodies where I wasn't before. In pictures, the pictures just do not do that car justice. They have a presence in person that is just not able to be properly translated in print. Philip saying, love the channel. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. Do you see a supercharged 5.7 coming from the factory or SCAT pack taking over the 5.7? Well, the only supercharged 5.7 that's out there is in the drag pack cars. But as far as anything coming from the factory, I don't know. I don't really see it. There's part of me that would actually like to see that, basically a Hellcating of the 5.7 would actually do some good. But for now, I just don't see it happen. I think it's a little bit of it's overly complex way to get to the same power levels that the 392 is already at. So, Cody's asking, if I had to build a 60s or 70s stock size big block and bottom end engine with any heads cams combo you want, what brand and what engine would you choose? That is tough to say. The easy answer is always going to be just, find a Chevy Big Block and have your way with it. I would probably go with, I'd probably build a 440. Honestly, I know Edelbrock makes a really good set of heads for the 440. Any air gap intake will work just fine with it. I'd probably stick to about 11-to-1 compression, and camshaft would be obviously a custom grind, like a 232, 242, 236, 242 type of a grind with about 600 lift on both sides. I think that'd be a really strong running engine, make about 550 horsepower, and you could, pull a freaking, redwood right out of the ground with it. So, but it's tough to say, it depends on what I'm really going for. If I'm going for something that I'm going to be, just something fun overall, it's difficult to argue with the Chevy stuff because there's so many things that are out there for them. You could literally build, it's funny thing about Chevy Big Blocks and the 440 to some extent, but you could literally build, anywhere from a 300 horsepower, tugboat motor all the way up to a 650 horsepower street rod motor out of the same block. Let's see. Sam saying bigger injectors on a gas motor decrease miles per gallon but increase performance. It's especially if you have your foot in it. But if you tune it, it would be just fine on for fuel economy. Yeah, Sean's saying, talking to Clever, saying, long tube headers really come alive with a cam right now and making 464 at the wheels with the long tubes and the tune on a Dyno Jet. Yeah, and Jay Poem is saying, hey, you check out multiple Mopars. Absolutely, check out his channel. Go74 also, is it hard to go from a carburetor to fuel injection on a 454? No, it's not. The Holley system actually makes it pretty easy. I forget their, whatever the Holley EFI system is, it's a throttle body injection. So it's not a huge departure from having a carburetor on it, but it does help for some cold start issues. But my opinion on that is if the carburetor is tuned properly, shouldn't have too much of an issue with it. If you don't drive it all the time, though, E10 gasoline can tear up the seals. So the fuel injection stuff will be able to manage that a little bit better, that situation with the E10. But it's not that difficult to make that switch. A lot of guys have done it and haven't had any real ill effects. And as far as power goes, you may sacrifice a smidgen of power, not enough to where you'd ever really notice it, unless it's a race car. I wouldn't worry about any ultra minor loss in power to get the reliability or start, cold start and all that. Just removes a bit of that pain in the ass. J Bum is saying, to you, by the way, I can't stand tunnel chasers or RT life either. What did I miss? Let's see. I missed something. Let's see. Ghost is asking, why is that? Let's see. Sean Egan, my 93 Cobra, criminally underrated from the factory at 235 SAE. It's a GT 45 liter making 260 to 280 SAE net horsepower. I actually made 262 at the wheels with typical 5 liter mods. Yeah, I mean, what's funny about if you look at the history on the 93 Cobra, the lady that was one of the head engineers, and I cannot remember her name. Anyway, the goal, I think, was that they were having issues with the 5 liter at that time, and the 225, the way they were coming up with the power. Anyway, the 225 was actually a little bit overrated on that engine, and so the idea, I think, I've actually got a book on it somewhere in here. Anyway, yeah, there's actually kind of an interesting story behind the 93 Cobra engine, but it's all good, man. I mean, they said sorry about the Ford talk. Man, I love me some Fords. It's all good. To you saying at JLOL. Let's see. Toby Rama, what mods would yield Challenger 392 power and torque numbers in a Ram 392? It would be cam, intake manifold, and a tune would get you in an exhaust. One and only SB, thank you very much. $20. Thank you very much for that. Saying, get that record on, man. Try and help when I can. Man, I do appreciate that very much. I'm looking for DA right now, to be honest with you. I've got to have a density altitude that is going to be somewhere in the, negative 1,000 foot range, but no headwind. And that's going to be kind of tough to find this time of year. But that's what it's going to take to actually get the thing to cut the number. And like I say, realistically, the way it sits now, it ifs and buts and all of that. But at the January 13th track rental, if we wouldn't have had the headwind, the car would have broken the record. No question about it. I mean, I was 3 mile an hour down on the back half of the track, and that's 100% due to that headwind. It had plenty of 8th mile to get there. So if we can get, a couple of more days where we've got good negative DA, the cool thing about this is that I don't need super negative DA to cover the number. What the hell was that? All I really need is a solid negative DA, like negative 750 to 1,000 with no headwind, we got ourselves a record. But it's just going to take a minute to get there. Let's see. But I am keeping it. Thank you very much again for the contribution to the cause. I am going to be talking to the folks over at Houston Raceway Park to see if there's any track rentals coming up that I can participate in, because I will jump all over it if I can. Let's see. Mesa K is saying, I have the comp cams, no springs required in a low boost cam. Would too much boost hurt? No, it won't. Basically, the cam that you've got is a it's just a little bit less radical cam, and it's designed basically to make a lot of cylinder pressure with low boost. I wouldn't, take this with a grain of salt, man, but don't try to throw the kitchen sink at it unless you've got a built bottom end and the fuel system to cover it and everything else. Camshaft's going to be the least of your problems if the rest of the combination can't work with what you're trying to do with it. Let's see, Cleaver saying, at Sean, he says, going to look into the custom grind along with the setup, want to get to the 45, so I'm not explaining myself about power at the crank. No kidding, right? Chaos of the Unicorn, still one of my favorite screen names. Saying, hey, B, is there a specific brand / model shorty header you would recommend for a mostly stock 5.7 ported intake manifold and throttle body? Yeah, the BBKs. They look really good, and they seem to fit well. Chris had some of those on his 392, and it actually made power. They are 1 7/8" shorty headers. So take a look at those. JBA makes a good set of headers as well. Sean Egan, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. $5, man. I like it. Saying, what was the manufacturer of your rear drag tires? They are Mickey Thompson, ET Street R's, and they are 305 45 17s. Thank you again very much. I appreciate it. Jay Pum is talking, hanging out with Go 74. Let's see. Go 74. It's a turbo 400 and it's 85 C20. Yeah, absolutely, man. That is, even with a mild build, the turbo 400 is bomb proof. Easy to work on too. Cleaver saying, thank you very much. Here's to the building fund or Diet Coke. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know. Forgot the damn, didn't go to the store. I'm out of Diet Coke, so I got to drink this. What is it called? Water? I don't know. It's disgusting, but it's all I have to sip on. But thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. That will absolutely go to the Diet Coke fund next time I go to the drag strip. Let's see. There you go. I lost there for a second. Comment Marks is asking, what do you think of the new Jeep Gladiator? I think it's pretty cool, but I think it still sucks that thing's not offered with some type of a V8 or a V6 making a little bit more power or something, anything. But just in general, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's about time. I don't really know that I like the Gladiator name for that thing, though. I mean, it's a Jeep truck. To me, it should be a Scrambler, but I don't know. Kind of weird. Let's see. Sam Grable saying, I wish Chrysler would build a performance diesel. Well, I mean, they kind of did that with the Cummins a little bit. Oh, it's a partnership. I wouldn't bank on them developing their own diesel anytime soon. Let's see. Of an LS swap, Sam, I think I missed something there. Go 74, it's negative 34 here. That's why I want to switch to a TBI system. It ran good on my 94, but it's also too cold for a carburetor, in my opinion. Yes, no kidding. If it's that cold, yeah, get you some fuel injection quickly. That'll be hell on a carburetor. Jay Plum is asking Brian, the 69 Dodge Super B is a B body, right? Yes. That car front to back is gorgeous. Absolutely. In fact, Super B, the B in the Super B is referencing that it is a B body Mopar. Kind of a top trivia question there. Yeah, it is a gorgeous car, and it's a shame that we don't really have cars like that anymore, like the Charger, any of the B bodies. So Coronet, Charger, Super B, even the Satellite. I mean, any of the B body cars. I don't know. I've always been real partial to the mid 60s and early 70s. But mainly the mid 60s and late 60s B body Mopar, whether it's 4-door or 2-door. For some reason, I just love those cars. Let's see. J Pump is saying, consumer sent me an alert. Text asked me to turn down my heat to 65 or lower. It's minus 20. Good Lord. That's crazy. David is asking, any experience with the fellas at Arrington Performance? Yes. With a 426 stroker, would an increase in rocker ratio be sufficient, or would you recommend a new cam profile? You're going to need a different cam for that. If so, do you have any recommended readings? Yeah, I do. I've actually put together several cams for 426s. And, quite honestly, give Pikes Performance a shout if you're looking to put a cam together for that. That's who I've done my custom grinds through is Pikes Performance, and they have some proprietary grinds that I put together for them that they use specifically for 426s, whether it's NA or boosted. So, it's not that hard putting a cam together for a 426 because it's a larger displacement engine. You can get away with a little bit more, but in terms of duration, it's going to be a little bit more forgiving, but you're still up against an intake manifold that is not going to work with you in terms of making power on the big end. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Let's see. Mason K is saying, thanks for the advice on the cam. Absolutely. I'll port the intake throttle body heads for boost then. Yes, definitely do that. Toby Ram is saying, clear this up for me. Since the 70 Elko is built on a Chevelle chassis, does it fall into the car category or is it a truck? It is an El Camino. I've always considered the Elko's cars. I never really could call it a truck because it's still a unibody. I mean, it's not a unibody construction. It's built on a frame, but it's got all one body. And to me, trucks had a separate bed. Sean saying, I know you're an old school manual shifter guy. What made you buy the automatic with the 392? The thing that made me go with the automatic with the 392 was the weight of the vehicle. I've got kind of and whether it's good or not, I've got a bit of a rule, and that's basically anything over 3,800 pounds, 3,900 pounds for me needs to have an automatic because you need the torque multiplication to get the thing moving out of the hole. Couple that with the fact that the 8-speed automatic is so good and is so far and away better in terms of being able to get a number out of it at the drag strip. That's really what pushed me more into that. So I liked the idea, and I had driven the manual cars, and you drive the manual and then drive the automatic, especially with the 8-speed. It's real difficult to justify the manual after driving that 8-speed. But that being said, there is still that one Challenger that I fell in love with that 6-speed. Let's see. David Hamilton at Toby Rama, is a hot dog a sandwich? I'm going to put something to bed for you right now. No, hot dog is not a sandwich. There is nothing sando about a hot dog at all. Anybody that will try to convince you that it is absolutely wrong in their assessment of what constitutes a sandwich. Now, you can make a hot dog sandwich if you cut the hot dog up either sideways or, like pepperoni style and lay that out on a piece of bread. However, if you take the hot dog and put it into a hot dog bun, that is a hot dog bun. It is not an actual sandwich. I will answer that. And again, anyone that will argue that point just doesn't understand what constitutes a sandwich. Let's see. Cleaver Enterprise, baby needs a bottle. Hopefully I can get to the track tomorrow. Gonna need some Houston racing info. Sister lives out there and she's got the bug now. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously Houston Raceway Park is where I do almost all of my racing. Check them out online to verify that they will be open. The weather out here is crazy unpredictable. And, so basically you got to check the more or less race day on Fridays to see how many cars have been stacked out in front waiting for it to not rain when they say it will, or waiting for the rain to stop when they say it won't. Let's see. Midwest Mopars. How many miles do you think you could get out of a set of Nitto Tri-5Rs without doing any burnouts? About 4,000 miles. Midwest Mopar is saying it's going to be minus 35 where he's at. That is insanity. Minus 35. That's messed up. Sam is asking, I wonder if Chrysler getting rid of the 5.7 in the 2500 and 3500 truck means it's a 426 coming to them. I've heard that the 5.7 is not going anywhere and that they're developing an inline 6 turbo, which would be freaking awesome. Go 74. In my opinion, they should have done something different about the Redeye. It looks the exact same as the Hellcat. Only difference, the Redeye, the Hellcat badge, at least it has a unique hood. Yeah, I think that was kind of part of an update, but I don't know. The Redeye, I don't know. It would have been cool with that demon hood, though, wouldn't it? Watch him end up doing that. Let's see. B5 Hemi saying, what up, B Mace? What up, B5? Go 74 asking where Midwest is from. Midwest is in Wisconsin. When only SB 340 is in Chicago. Saying I hate living here, only 4 months of nice weather to do car stuff. That's Go 74. I could not imagine, man. That would drive me absolutely crazy. Midwest is saying I hate living here. There's literally a month of car season. That's craziness. Yeah, you guys up there in the Midwest are getting buried right now. I feel bad for y'all, man. I really do. Let's see. Jay Wayne is asking, is it possible, does anybody know, to put the new Hellcat snorkel hood on the 2015 Hellcat for the extra 10 horsepower? I don't know that hood got him an extra 10 horsepower, but I would certainly like to see one on there. The issue with putting one of those on the 15 is it might have something to do with the mass airflow meter. They switched to 100% speed density, I think, in 2017. But I'm sure there is a way to do it. I just haven't come up with it yet. Let's see. Got you guys chatting over here. I like it. Let's see. Easy Rider's asking, do you have any thoughts on Ram's ETorque system, and with the recent announcement from the CEO talking electrification, do you see any performance benefits with ETorque system made into the 392s? I'm not sure if they're going to do anything like that with the 392s. It would be kind of cool if they did. It would be neat if they did something to, maybe set it apart, or, Mopar and Dodge in general has always been good about being a little bit ahead of the curve with some of that kind of stuff. So, I would like to think that there's going to be something there that they could get away with the 392s, maybe have that be an option, or the 5.7, who knows? I mean, it's tough to say, but the ETorque system, again, I haven't actually seen one in person. I haven't seen the system, but I have heard of it. And I think it's something pretty cool. It's a fairly simple setup. So, you know, I don't see there being too much of an issue with that. Yeah, if it picks up a little bit extra torque, makes, you know, initializing, getting a load moving a little bit easier. Maybe, you know, picks up a little bit of fuel economy in town. I'd say it's a good thing. A lot of these new systems are becoming more and more seamless too. So I think, and durability is really not as much of a question now as it used to be. This stuff is, you know, it's got to fall under a powertrain warranty that's going to last for at least 100,000 miles. It's tough to argue with just the durability, but we'll see. You know, again, it's going to have to be something that we keep our eyes on. It's Ghost 74 saying that hood is fake news. Yeah, I think that may have more to do with how that engine was tested, because it's got an open element air filter. And I don't think that they had the hood bolted to anything when they were doing the dyno testing on that. So it's not a sealed box the way that the Hellcat's a sealed box. That might have been where the power actually came from. Chaos of Unicorn saying minus 35 weather is why I spent months searching for an RT all-wheel drive charger. Plus the rocket ships on the streets, that's always a plus. Absolutely. Let's see. Midwest Mopars is on the west side. The east side has Road America and the Great Lakes. Up there in the Great, up north. Sean Egan saying, my all-wheel drive 300C is a great vehicle to have this time of year, and it runs 13s. Yeah, you've got to have something that's all-wheel drive if you're up there. Let's see. One and only SB340. Yeah, just curious. I spent months there running my 446 barrel Roadrunner and the 70 RTSC 440 Charger. Nice. Oh, Ghost 74 is saying, oh, by the way, I finally took my Challenger to dealership. The keyless entry lost connection to the computer, so it's all good now. Very good. Philip saying, I saw a 300 SRT for the first time today. Very nice. And he got his, and Ghost 74 is saying he got his airbag swapped out. Very cool. But no, y'all, yeah, I wanted to, you know, I wanted to make sure I answered the questions on Revlon as well, and make sure you guys were up to speed as far as, you know, I'm getting questions like, you know, what RPM am I launching at? It's about 1200. 12 to 1500 ish. Basically, I just load up the suspension. You know, what tire pressures am I running? Right now I'm running 24 on some of these tracks have got really good prep, but the more pressure you can run in the tires, the better it is, especially for, you know, mile an hour on the big end. I was at 23.5 on the shakedown run with my car, and went to 24 after that, and would have liked to, if the DA were a little bit lower, I probably would have raised air pressure because the track was hooking nicely, would have raised air pressure and, you know, seen if I could, you know, maybe drag a little bit more mile an hour out of it on the big end. But for the most part, you know, 85 up front and 24 in the rears. And the other question that was asked is if I'm going to put a catch can on the car. Not yet. We'll see. Maybe after this winter, or rather this spring, I'll take a look at that. And it might end up getting a catch can just to see, you know, if it's going to even benefit the car at all. But right now it doesn't seem to be suffering from not having a catch can on it. And as far as any of the data on the car, it's not, I'm not running into any knock retard. I'm not running into any issues really to speak of with it. The small amount of data logging that I've done, it's all been very consistent. And so I basically just gave up data logging because I kept getting the same results. It's a stock car. As far as other modifications, like removing the catalytic converters, I'm not going to remove the catalytic converters just yet. There's no reason to. Number one, I don't have my computer's still locked. I mean, it's a stock computer. And two, right now I'm really not suffering from not having catalytic converters, or from having, I should say, catalytic converters. In fact, the car is running really well with the catalytic converters on there and going into cat overtemp. And that was the other thing that I wanted to get to. Kind of a long going around my ass to get to my elbow thing, but it goes into cat overtemp right about, it starts going into cat overtemp at about the 1,000-foot mark. So, you know, it's not pulling timing, but it is throwing fuel at it. The one thing that did bother me just a little bit was how much fuel it was throwing at it, though, when it went into cat overtemp. Commanded AFR was, I think it was 10.5, but the injector duty cycle was going to like 95% to cool off the cats. And it was at about 80% before it started going into catalytic converter overtemp protection mode. It's a bit of a problem for me seeing that much of an injector duty cycle. And that could potentially be a reason that I would pull the cats off of it, unlock the computer, put a tune on the car that just dealt with the catalytic converters, and maybe do a little bit of trans tuning in the meanwhile. But that would be after I've already gone after the record, got as deep as I can get into the record with it stock. Then I'll mess with it with the tune and pulling the cats off of it or whatever else. But really the idea there is, you know, I'm looking at an injector duty cycle that's pretty aggressive in these cooler weather DAs. And I'm sure that, you know, in even lower DAs, that number is going to go up. And that's one thing that does kind of bother me a little bit. So if I had any concerns with the car, that would be the only concern. And even that isn't really much of a concern for me. So, let's see. David Hamill saying, I'm off. Thank you for the recommendation. Y'all have a good night. You're making me very happy that I left Detroit for Dallas. Don't miss that cold. No kidding. Shawning is asking, what is the record for mile per hour of a stock Hellcat? Maybe you're close on that. No, not yet. The stock mile an hour record, I think, is 131 and change. And that would have had to have been in unbelievable. Well, I can tell you this, the records that I know of that have fallen in with significantly lower DAs than I've run my 49 in, with zero headwind. So if you factor that into the mix, like I say, I mean, I was down 3 mile an hour on January 13th. I would say the car had a 130 in it for sure, probably a 131 or close to 131 in it had we not had the headwind. So, I mean, we're right there on top of ET and mile an hour. We just got to have the right conditions, and it drives me nuts, but we'll get there. We'll definitely be getting there soon. Let's see. White Knuckle RT, hey B, what do you think about nitrous on a stock 5.7? I think it's great. Just make sure you don't get greedy with it. I would always recommend running a progressive system, and you know, have a system that works off of injector duty cycle. Let's see, Nitrous Works makes a kit that does that. But you know, again, don't get greedy. I would say, you know, 100 shot or less. I know a lot of guys get away with 125, 150 shot on the 5.7. I would just err on the side of caution with that. You know, get your colder shit, you know, get your, colder plugs. 7s is what I would recommend. But I would, you know, make sure it's tuned for nitrous. Don't just throw the nitrous on the car and spray and pray. That's never a good idea. Jay Pum is saying, I drove through all that snow passing front wheel drive cars on I-94 the other day in my RT. Very cool. Let's see. Philip saying, seriously though, high powered luxury cars are selling well these days. Chrysler would do well to bring back the 300 SRT. I don't know why I don't know if it's a fuel economy thing, or what the deal is with that, but the Australian market has it. I know the UAE has it. Talking about the SRT 300s, I just don't see why we don't have that here in the States. I mean, if anything, this is where it should be, but they're not doing that here, so it's kind of weird to me. Let's see, Midwest Mopars. What tires are you running on the Hellcat for the street? I am running a set of 305 35 Tri-5Rs on a set of 10.5-inch wide replica wheels in the back, and the stock all seasons up front, stock size. And I am running the Mickey Thompson 305 45 17 ET Street Rs in the rear, and the 28x6 Mickey Thompson front runners that they've got. And they're more or less made for the Hellcat. The load rating is such that the skinnies are very safe and actually stable for the Hellcat. And those are, again, Mickey Thompsons. Let's see. Go 74. On your Hellcat, do you have all the seats deleted except for the driver's seat, of course, and everything out of the trunk? Actually, your compartment, so passenger seat, rear seats are all still there. The trunk does not have the speaker box. And the reason why I typically won't have the speaker box in the trunk is because I've got all the crap in the car. So I'll have toolboxes and a jack and, a host of other just, coolers and everything else in the back of the car. And the speaker box comes out just to make room for that. But the speaker box weighs 14 pounds. That's basically the equivalent of 2 gallons of fuel. That's another thing. I don't like to run the car less than a quarter tank. So I know a lot of guys will try to cheat that weight down as far as they can and, pull fuel as well. Like I say, the only difference with me is that I don't have a speaker box in it, mainly to make room for crap that I bring with me to the drag strip. So let's see. But no, full interior, 100% everything's still in that car. Sophonics saying Chevy just announced they are putting the A10 into the ZL1 1LE. Good enough to keep the 2020 GT500 at bay? You better believe it. In fact, that might be good enough to basically shut down the GT500 in general. It might be another 2 years before that car ever makes it to the party. So sad. So sad. Philip saying, it's about time Mopar gave the M5 a kick in the teeth with a 300 Hellcat. Why don't they? I agree 100%. Saying, Mopar, I like it. Mark Flamer saying, hey, Brian, now that Texas Speed is making Hemi cams, do you think the Hemi is starting to get some aftermarket attention it deserves? Yeah, it's starting to, baby steps. But we got to have an intake manifold. I mean, all the cam in the world is not going to do you any good unless you got an intake manifold that'll actually help you carry power on the big end for those engines. And, no matter how much I port a 6.4 intake, it's never going to flow the way that it should. I mean, it'll do well enough, but, in terms of being able to actually spin to 72, 7,400 RPM, the way that those heads, could conceivably spin to or support in terms of RPM, you're just not going to see it happen unless we've got an intake manifold that'll allow it to spin that high. Of course, the downside to that is when you have an intake manifold that flows that well up top, you're going to sacrifice some power down low. So, which do you prefer? It's tough to say, but even the stock intake manifold with a Fastman throttle body with a camshaft it'll still spin to 6,500 RPM, which is plenty high with a 392 cubic inch engine, still gets you out of the hole, and, it'll run just fine. So I'm glad Texas Speed is doing something about camshafts. I would like to see some other manufacturers get a little bit more interested in Mopars, but it's tough to, and this isn't meant to sound the way it's going to sound, but it's tough to get better than the factory stuff from Mopar. They kind of gave you a lot to work with on the front end already. So, it's a well-engineered package, especially when you consider the weight of the vehicle. And that's kind of the the tough part with the Hemi is that it does have to contend with more weight than an LS or a Coyote would. James Hutch is coming in. It's awesome. Saying, Mason, first time here. Glad to have you. Want to thank you for all your knowledge. I'm having an issue with short stumbles when I go wide open throttle after 93 can tune ported 85 millimeter throttle body. Make sure that you do a throttle body relearn with the car. And I would also, let's see, short stumbles. Make sure that stumble, listen real closely to that stumble. Make sure you're not getting low speed spark knock. It's real common, or at least it used to be real common for Hemis with a canned tune to have issues with some type of a surge or low speed spark knock at partial throttle, like heavy, like say half throttle is 70% throttle, lower RPM ranges. If that's what you're working into or running into, look to working with a tuner that might be able to get you a custom tune as opposed to the canned tunes. Some of those canned tunes are pretty gross. Sean Egan saying, I deliver propane. These cold temperatures help me make overtime to save for my cam. I like it. Keenan is asking, do I recommend ETorque tires? I actually have, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, back there's a set of ETorque AZ850s. I don't have a problem with ETorques at all, provided that you are buying them and doing with them, in my opinion, what they're meant to be, which is literally just a tire to have on the back of the car to get you from point A to point B. They make a good amount of smoke if you light them up, and they're very inexpensive by comparison anyway. So, yeah, I mean, they're good tires. They actually have good lateral traction. It's considerably better than what I thought, or what I was expecting anyway. And so, as far as straight line acceleration, no, they're not going to hook at all. But they're good overall tires, and again, they're inexpensive, and you know, it's a tire. It's never going to help you with anything other than just being round. Bad Hemi 300S saying, I'm switching from 262 non-LSD to 309. What should I expect from doing this? It's going to be a lot more lively on the street. You will be able to use more of your throttle as well. It'll actually make the car a little bit more fun to drive in both respects. You'll be able to utilize the throttle more on acceleration to get you moving, but it is going to be more lively all the way across the board. I think you're going to be real happy with that. Midwest Mopars is saying, talking about the 300 SRT. They got rid of the 300 SRT here because it sold one for like every 300 grand Cherokees. That makes sense. SRTs, it's a shame to see it here. It was awesome. I love those cars. Oh, cool. Easy Rider saying, building a period, like a period correct Mighty Mouse Small Journal 327 for the street. What's a good old school cam? For something like that, depending on the heads that you're going to run on it, I would say something with an intake center line of probably 10. I would probably say 108 for that. Have it come in a little bit sooner. Exhaust center line probably, let me think. 119-ish. What does that give us? Be about 112 degree LSA, I think, on that. Probably 222, 226 on the intake. And I would go 230-ish on exhaust. With about 540 lift would be a fun cam for that car if you're doing a roller setup on it. In fact, that'd be a real fun cam. James Hutch saying, I agree. We need a manifold that will flow better. Switching from 5.7 to 6.4, will it do better? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it will. Let's see. Yeah, if you're going from a 5.7 to the 6.4, a lot of guys are doing that now. They're using a window switch to actuate the short runner valve. I think they're picking up like 12 or 15 horsepower with that intake manifold. Let's see. Mark Flame, we're true. The Edelbrock intake manifold was horrible. Yeah, really bad. Wish we could get an FAST intake manifold. They love LS stuff, but if they make good Hemi intake manifold, they'll sell a lot of them. They'll sell all of them, man. Anybody that will make an aftermarket intake manifold, you know, polymer style intake manifold would basically corner the market for the Hemi crowd. And it just blows my mind that nobody's done it yet. I think that you will, I'd say in the next 3 to 4 years, you'll start seeing more and more manufacturers starting to go after the Hemi market just because so many are being sold. There's so many 5.7s and 6.4s out there running around that, I mean, it's tough to argue with right now, or at least it's tough to argue against putting, you know, something together like an intake manifold for that platform now. Jose Padilla saying, what do you think about modding a Redeye? I think it's great. It just depends on how crazy you want to get with it. But I mean, it's going to respond to mods just fine. I would say that, you know, you're going to run into the same issues that any Hellcat owner runs into. You know, at what point do you want to switch over to E85? That's going to be the big question. You know, you start messing with pulley ratios, you're already making more boost than a Hellcat is from the factory. So it's just a matter of how much more power do you want to make and how much more money you want to spend. Let's see. Jay Pum is saying, so-called the post office was closed Tuesday and tomorrow. The UPS trucks are drafty. Yeah, I bet. You know, I couldn't imagine being stuck out there in this weather up there, guys. I really do. My heart goes out to you guys. That sucks. Let's see. Philip's asking, what do you think of the new Ram TRX? It's gotten me very excited. We finally get to see some real competition for the Raptor. Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, the TRX is going to be sick to death. So just get ready for that. But in terms of cost, though, that's the only thing that spooks me. James Hutch, will switching to the Hellcat rear 262 diff work? It will if you've got an 8-speed car. Multiple Mopars, have you messed with the Kenny Bells much? Not that much, no. I've seen a lot of Whipples, but none of the Kenny Bells. The black car I was telling you about in Ennis, E90, 412-inch, 4.9 liter, and not sure whose 9-inch or gear ratio to use. I would stick with the 262 on that one, brother. You're going to run out of gear real quick with the 309 with that setup. All of the big horsepower cars that I've seen or been involved with have all switched back. They had started out 309 and then reverted back to 262 once the strokers were in and the Whipples were a-spinning. So, and all of those were on a Mustang dyno making right at or just under 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels. So, but I would, that's the 9-inch. I want to say G-Force makes a setup that uses a 9-inch. Basically, it's a 9-inch conversion. Supposed to be pretty stout, but I know of one guy that's even managed to blow one of those up and has gone back to stock. But yeah, check out G-Force. I believe they're the ones that make that. And I would definitely run 262s. But really, if you got a 9-inch, you can put whatever gear you want in it. 456. No, just kidding. Yeah, 262. I'd still stick with something around that ratio. Mark Flamer saying, can you really get away with not pinning the crank with the clutched Hellraiser pulley? No. Anything other than stock, I would say pin it. Only because you're going to have higher stresses on the crankshaft. That being said, I don't know of any car that has pulleys that hasn't had the crankshaft or the crank pulley pinned, whether it's stock or if they've gone with a 10% overdrive. I just don't know of anybody that hasn't pinned it. I know that you're going to hear a lot about, well, you don't have to pin the crank. I guess technically you don't have to with the Hellraiser pulley, but I would still do it just from, a best practices standpoint. Especially if you're going to, if you're going to leave the car alone, you've got no plans and no desire to put a 10% lower on it anyway, go ahead and pin the crank. And it's fairly cheap insurance. I've talked to techs about how often, guys that have worked at dealerships for years and have worked on a lot of Hellcats. And I've asked them, how many spun balancers have you seen? How many issues due to a spun balancer have you seen when you worked at the dealership and dealt with Hellcats? And the number was 0. I know of maybe a couple that have spun a balancer even with stock pulleys, and they're super rare, to say the least. So, but if you're going to run if you're going to run a more aggressive pulley ratio, you might as well just go ahead and pin the crank. Let's see. J Puma at Multiple Mopars. Is that the cold start video? Sean E is saying, good night, B. Good night, Sean. Mopar is saying, yep. Philip Marcus, easily an $80,000 truck. A current top-end Ram already runs in the $65,000 range. No kidding. Man, trucks are expensive as hell these days, aren't they? Jay Pum was saying that Demon was thumping. Yeah, Demons sound good. Symphonics. Every day I get on YouTube and there's another 18 GT that is blown up. Why on earth would anybody in their right mind buy one of those right now? Man, golly, it kills me. It kills me that they're having that many issues with that car, because I don't know. I always look to Ford to be the bomb-proof option, and they're just not right now. So, James Hutch saying, I guess no go for my Nag 1. What's a good ratio gear for a Magnum RT Street and Strip? Magnum RT Street and Strip with a Nag 1 would be a 370. 370 would be my choice. The problem is the 370s are obnoxiously expensive. So 309 will definitely wake it up if you're working with a 262 right now. But I hate to say it, but 370 would probably be the way I would try to go first. Let's see. Oh, Multiple Mopar saying I'm definitely excited to get his cars up and his mod list up and rolling there for Jay. James Hutch saying, thanks, Mason. Thank you, sir. Jay Pone is sending the big fist bump over out to Multiple Mopars. So, but no, man, I wanted to, try to get you guys, as much information as I can on Revlon and let y'all know, really where the car is going to be going, as the year progresses. And realistically, everything I'm going to do to that car is going to revolve around durability modifications, your general maintenance type stuff. It's going to be a bit boring, I guess, as far as that goes. But again, before I start, opening up the ECU and doing anything like that, we definitely need to see how deep we can get it with the stock setup. Philip Mark is asking, what do you think about Pro Chargers for the 5.7 or 6.4? Golly. Okay, so so my answer to that depends on what your goal is for the vehicle. If you're looking to get a nice bump in power, in the range of 125 to 140 horsepower, it's a great place to be. They're easy on transmissions. They're they're a good unit all the way around. What I try to tell folks about the Pro Charger is that they are a good way to build power in a safe way, provided you've got somebody that's tuning it that knows what they're doing. And that's really the key to it there. You don't want to get greedy when you're talking about Mopars. The last thing you want to do is get greedy with them. That's when cars start to pop ringlands and blow engines. So don't try to get a ton of power out of that system unless you've got built short block or at least resized rings and potentially a built transmission. But the main thing is going to be fueling. Because you've got a heavy vehicle, I would like to see that thing running on E85 if at all possible. It's not to say you have to. On a Mustang dyno, it's pretty common to get 530, 540 to the rear wheels with a Pro Charger on a 392. Pro Charger on a 5.7, you're looking at probably 435, 445 to the rear wheels safely. But again, I try to caution folks when it comes to those types of builds. Don't get greedy. Stick with what you know works, and picking up another 100 horsepower is never a bad thing. So, but and also don't try to go cheap. Make sure you get the race intercooler. Go with the best compressor you can afford, and you'll be real happy with it. Go74 is asking, so is the Dodge Angel a real thing? I keep hearing people talk about 1,000 horsepower Dodge project. Man, I'm not going to say it's a real thing just yet. I'll say that, and just keep this in mind, the Angel doesn't have to be a car. The Angel can be a code name for a particular platform or a particular power plant. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you keep hearing stuff like that. And, as far as what's coming down the pipe, I'm more interested to see where they take the LX platform. I think the LX platform is, when it gets revised, is going to lend itself really well to some, real deep ETs just with the current engine platforms that they have, because you're talking about a weight reduction of about 200 to 300 pounds. So you're going to see some performance gains just from that. If there is going to be a Halo car offered up by FCA with the new platform, I wouldn't necessarily hinge or hang my bet that it's going to be 1,000 horsepower engine. It's going to be tough to get that out of a car running on 93 octane, but if it's flex fuel with the 85, it could be a completely different story. So we'll just have to see. Sophonic says, man, I want so bad to see some of those 19 SSs with a 10-speed start hitting the tracks. Actually, there was one in Dallas. Really want to see what those things can do against an 18 GT since they have more torque and way less. Full weight for full weight, they're a little bit quicker, but not by much. Jay Poma, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, my friend. Saying next week, cooking with B. Mason and friends. Hashtag Project Revlon, both arms up. I like it. Yeah, I have. Speaking of cooking, I should do that. Instead of eating Taco Bell and Muscle Milk is not working out too well. It's half the reason why I sleep in the lounge. Anyway, no, that it's really kind of funny with with all the rumors that are going around and everybody talking about what's the Angel going to be, what's the next evolution of the Dodge product. It's funny because, well, let me rephrase that. It's interesting because you hear nothing of anybody talking about anything that's exciting from Ford or Chevrolet. Corvette, I'll take out of that equation. but nobody's getting the kind of good press that Mopar is getting right now. And to me, that's something that means kind of more than just what's on the surface. You know, Mopar is generating a lot of excitement with everything that they're doing now. And between the Redeye, the wide body Hellcat, you know, the different hoods and just the overall, you know, feel of Mopar as of a company that's really trying to engineer and build excitement for their brand. Everybody else just seems like they're trying to survive, which is kind of not a good look. But anyway, getting back to the Camaro, the last one, or the one that I saw at the drag strips, a 10-speed auto car, I want to say it was running 1140s. Basically stock E85 tune and drag pack. So, you know, stock for stock is probably a little bit quicker. Probably doesn't have the R&D behind it yet with tuning to get it really as deep as that Mustang's going right now. But, you know, and at least in that DA, that car was running 1140s. So, you know, not that far off the mark from Rob's car, which was running 1160s all day. And his car weighs easily, you know, what, 600 pounds more than that Camaro. So, you know, 392 for the win, at least in that respect, in terms of, you know, how impressive that car did compared to the weight of the thing. But, you know, I tell you, you know, I keep looking at, you know, some of the questions and really what people are interested in terms of like the GT500, for example. There are so many people that are upset with the GT500, and the GT500 isn't even a thing yet. It's only been kind of rolled out onto the stage, and already people are not happy with it. You know, the new Camaro was getting a lot of bad pub just based on the redesign of it. It doesn't really look that much better in person. The one that I saw at the drag strip was white, and the white actually looked pretty good with the drag pack, but with the new wheels that, you know, with the stock wheels on it, it was just, wasn't that great. Who knows? Maybe I'll warm up to it, but for now, I'm just not all that impressed with the look. But again, they seem to run pretty good. They just don't have, they don't have the, I don't know. They run too close to a damn 392 car. And quite honestly, the 392 car, if that 19 SS is any indication of how those things are going to run, 392s, unless that SS has got a lot of work done to it, are not going to have any problems running right there with them. But again, Jay, thank you so very much. I do truly appreciate that. Let's see, where am I? James Hutch, working with Inertia Big Valve Heads and Spartan Max Cam. Have you had any experience with Jay Green Racing on tuning? Not personally. I know plenty of guys that have worked with Jay Green and have had good results. If you're local to Houston, I would say go to Pites. It's PEITZ Performance. But Jay does a lot of remote tuning. I think Alex is doing more remote tuning as well. So just something to consider. But no, Jay, have never visited with the guy, but everybody I've talked to has nothing but good things to say to Jay, or about Jay. So let's see. Chris is saying, hey buddy, quick question. When I got my 17 Challenger RT, I got pretty decent miles per gallon. Usually around 22 on the highway. Now it's got 11,000 miles on it, and I'm lucky to get 18 to 19. Does that seem normal? Well, a couple of things. Make sure you're changing the oil. That's a big deal. Check the pressure in your tires as well. This time of year, you know, obviously tire pressure is going to drop because it's cold outside. But I typically don't see a loss in fuel economy due to mileage. I mean, in fact, my work trucks all get really good fuel economy just going down the highway. Whether it was, you know, 30,000 miles or 20,000 miles, they all got roughly the same fuel economy. So definitely check on that. Let's see. Track Pack RT. Good to see you, B Mason. Good to see you on here, Track Pack. Saying, need to get my new tires this year for my RT. Debating on either a set of summer tires paired with some used slicks for the track or try 5Rs for the street and strip. Your thoughts? For the RT, I'd go with 555Rs and call it good. Most guys are not having too many issues with, with those cars hooking up on that tire. Even the Hellcats are not having a hard time hooking up on Tri 5s. It takes a little bit of a burnout and the right pressure, but they'll still hook. So I would say if you're going to be running them around, Tri 5Rs would probably work. Now that said, I got to ask, how often are you going to be taking this thing to the drag strip? If you're taking it to the drag strip a lot, get you a set of dedicated rears, like some Bravados and a set of ET Street Rs. You will thank me for that, because you'll be able to run that thing more or less. You can run an entire season on those tires, whereas you're going to burn through those Tri 5Rs pretty quickly if you're going to the drag strip a lot. Let's see. James is saying, I'm reaching for 600 horsepower. Reliability is my main focus. You can get that. I would say, D1 supercharger. I would just, be careful when you're shooting for a number. When I hear 600 horsepower, I'm thinking Mustang dyno numbers. But on a Dyno Jet, that's still doable. It's going to be on the edge of what I would consider safe for 93 octane for vehicles of our weight. Let's see. One and only SB340 saying, go 74. I can tell you this. A lady friend of mine told me that us Dodge boys are going to have a lot of fun with the 2 new trucks. A while later, she said, and 1 new car. Not Angel, just will have fun. I like it. Saying sorry about the all cabs. All good, brother. Yeah, actually, in terms of engines, I would love to see a turbocharged inline 6 for the trucks. I think that would be a riot. Mark Flamer saying, bold prediction for 2020 Challenger turns 50. We'll see the 426 with ETorque stop start. That would be interesting to say the least. But I can't wait to see, and I'm saying it right as I'm reading Go 74's comment. I can't wait to see what we end up getting. There's some options that are out on the table for him, obviously. Whether we're going to get a 426 or revised 392, some forced induction engine variant, whatever the case is, it's going to be good and it's going to be exciting. I mean, this is Mopar that we're talking about. We're not talking about some boring LS insert number, alphabet soup engine coming out of, GM. And obviously there's nothing really to talk about when it comes to Ford, which is kind of a topic in and of itself. We're just talking, guys, we're just talking about the SRT 300, right? Well, Ford doesn't have anything to compare to the Charger, nothing to the SRT 300 or any 300 for that matter. Everything has gone SUV with Ford. And that's great, but the problem with Ford is that there's nothing to generate excitement, in my opinion. When I think Ford, the only car I think of, or vehicles that I think of when I think Ford, Mustang and trucks, that's it. And in my world, it could be Mustang, trucks, a Focus, and a Flex. And that's the only vehicles that they would ever have to make. And I don't even know what other vehicles that they do make. I'm just so underwhelmed with them. Obviously the GT500 is there to try to garner some excitement. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about the Ford GT, that supercar thing. But guys, I got to tell you, there's just nothing that's exciting from the other manufacturers. So, that's why so many people want to talk about the new Mopars or what Mopar could potentially come out with. This type of excitement about a new car I haven't felt like this, or actually it's from before I was even born, I should say. But the general automotive public hasn't had an opportunity to feel like this since, back in the 60s when it was, oh, wow, what's the next, the next insert, whatever, manufacturer you're into, what's that car going to have? What power plant is it going to have? Mopar is the only manufacturer that's really giving that to you. The only, let me think about this. Maybe Toyota with the Supra, but the cat's kind of out of the bag with that car. Why don't, it'd be nice if they put that engine in the J40, right? But anyway, I find it kind of cool that, Mopar is getting that level of attention and that level of excitement. So whatever it is that they bring out, it's going to be exciting. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be anything new. Just a reimagination of something that they have now is going to be pretty cool from them. It just needs to weigh a little bit less. Jay Palm was saying, at Philip, I was going to say Amphicar. Absolutely. One of ASB340 saying, oh yeah, she works for Chrysler. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I got this girlfriend of mine, she's kind of into cars. Yeah, she says you're going to be excited. But yeah, she works for Chrysler. Very cool. Oh, hey, Mark's saying, also, Sublime Green is back for 2019 for Challenger and Charger. No kidding. Very cool. Philip Marcus. Next up, Dodge SCAT 797 horsepower speedboat, complete with flaming piranha logo. Oh, shit, I'd rock it. Multiple Mopars. Philip Marcus, make it a bass boat and I'm in. Hell yeah. Go out there and fish up some barracudas. Let's see. Go 74. I choose Challenger over Camaro and Mustang is because it's huge. I can have 4 people in the car comfortably and still have a fun time. Yeah, not only that, but if you drive them back to back, it's readily apparent where your money is spent with the Mopar. And that's another thing. A lot of guys go, "Oh, the Dodge is expensive." Well, yeah, but you get more, so it's going to be more. It needs to be that way. And I want Dodge to be profitable, so they keep making cool stuff. Sophonics, if I do take my car to the drag strip this year and run it on my new Conti Extreme Contact Sports in good prep, should I plan on hooking it all? If I just brake torque, it's about 1,500 and then go. It's going to be tough, man. You're going to need to practice on the street, see what it's going to act like on the street at street pressure, and just roll into the throttle and see how much seat time you can get with that car before you get it onto the drag strip. It's going to be real important that you're really getting a feel for feeding the throttle into the into the car, as well as loading up the chassis beforehand. So load the chassis up to about 1,200 RPM, and then practice on rolling the throttle into wide open. And don't be surprised if you're still rolling into the throttle and the thing shifts into second gear. That's not uncommon. And it might actually run some of its better times when it does that. I know my 392 did on stock tires. Go 74. What do you think of the 4-door Mustang? I think it'll be a flop. I think it's a huge mistake if they even think that they're going to do that realistically. Like that's going to be something they're going to do. No. Bad idea. Bad Ford. Let's see. James Ike saying, appreciate knowledge. Thank you. You rock. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. After the Magnum, looking to get a Hellcat Charger. My Magnum RT is part of the family and will never let go. Wishing to see the Magnum come back. Had an interesting conversation with one of the marketing guys at Mecum a few years back. And this was about a year before the Viper was slated to be killed. Actually, might have been about 4 years ago now that I think about it. But I actually had already learned that the Viper was on its way out. And I asked the guy, basically, we were talking, and in fact, it was it's a long conversation. And part of that conversation, I brought up the Magnum, and he said, well, did you ever own a Magnum? And I said, no, I never did. And he said, well, that's why they don't make it anymore. It's one of the, if they had enough, if there was enough interest in that car, they would have just kept making them straight through, but people just weren't buying as many as they were hoping that they would. And so the resources were reallocated elsewhere. So, but yeah, I'd love to get myself a Magnum. Those things are awesome. James Hutch is saying, wish Mopar would bring back a 440. That would be pretty sweet. Ghost 74 saying they should bring back B7 Blue. B7 Blue is gorgeous. And then James Hutch saying Mopar muscle has always been expensive to build. Yeah, it has. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way that it's always been. But God, it's just so good though when it's built right. Philip Mark is saying, it's got to go. See ya. Fly the Mopar flag high. Absolutely. You know I will. Yeah, I'm going to have to check out too, fellas. I've got to get some sleep. But thank y'all very much for hanging out with me this evening. I truly appreciate each and every one of y'all. And I will catch up with you on the next one. Hopefully we get some good DAs here soon. And probably not this weekend. Maybe next weekend, get this thing out to the drag strip when I get back in town. So you guys have again, fantastic evening. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me. And that is